Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an excellent game to share with you from the 2016 European Championship. On the white end, Daniil Dubov playing against Ante Brkic. Okay, the opening we have here, a Queen's Gambit declined, Bishop G5, Bishop B4 check. This is the Vienna Variation. Knight blocks, and how to handle this pin. Black plays in a forceful way. Ends up breaking that pin, not without its drawbacks. 3 holes created. Okay, knight no longer pinned. A consistent follow-up is to now move that piece. Targets C3. It's secure. We're not quite done with these forceful moves, though. In comes H5, threatening to trap the bishop now. So you have your pick at this stage. You could go H3 or H4. Big difference between the two. White's decision, H3. If you go H4, do know that this knight will have to find a new home, so you have to be prepared for that. H4, there's G4. Yeah, you have to move the knight. With H3, on the other hand, the move in the game, G4 not an option. You could take, and there's no recapture because of the pin. Now, I want to draw some attention to this important middle game moment. It's a very interesting one. This is where we see an evaluation, a shift in the evaluation. How Black plays it from here. Black captures on C3 with the bishop, while the knight is still around on E4, and in that way, White has to recapture with the pawn. And after that capture, we see the capture on G3. White recapturing, of course. At that point, the knight plays to C6, and White's reply is to go from E2 to E4, extracting the maximum out of the E-pawn. Bishop helped in the process. Now, how the computer wants to play it here. It says play knight C6 right now. Keep the pressure for just another move on C3 and G3. Now, let's see why this is significant. First of all, in response to knight C6, computer says best is E3, and we can already see that if E3 is playing, that will be an improvement over what's observed in the game. Pawn only gets to go 1 square. Knight still around on E4. I had a look at 2 moves here. I thought to myself, well, isn't this a window for White to preserve the bishop? I mean, if you're not going to swipe the bishop now, can you not just back off to H2? We're going to have a look at bishop H2 and be warned, that is a wild line. The other move, queenside castles. There is an issue with each of these moves. Let's touch on the wild one first. Bishop H2. G4 would now be possible. Chop, chop. There's no rook captures rook here, but there is a tactical shot here. Bishop takes C7, hitting the queen and the rook. But hang on. There's queen F6 here to defend the rook. Rook captures rook, queen captures rook. In this position here, it calls it -1. Pressure on the knight, pressure on the center. It's looking at knight E5, bishop D7, queen H4 can be a move, converging on F2. The knight is still around. The pin is still present. Pressure on C3 still present. The big difference I see here, one piece, you do one piece comparison, the queens stick out to me here. The queen, the black queen here, really functioning like a queen. Completely open file, pressure on these center squares. Again, -1 at the end of the day. Okay, the other line, not nearly as sophisticated. What is happening in the case of queenside castles? Well, there's no longer a pin. You go ahead and chop on C3, and then give this bishop a kick from its defense of F2. The king is no longer around, securing that point, being on C1. There's this follow-up fork idea. Black would be winning here. Okay, anything else to touch on at this moment here? This is one other thing I questioned. Rather than capturing here and then on G3, I switched that move order. I thought to myself, why not maybe chop on G3 and maintain this unopposed bishop and then pinpoint this square? Important move here, queenside castles. You have to be prepared to give up this pawn. If you try to babysit it with king f2, h4 is a strong idea. What do you do about that? King f2, h4, bishop ready to hop into g3, and if you're capturing, then there's this open file, a backward g pawn. You must be prepared to castle queenside here and give up this pawn. And in the end, this is a very good position for white. Where is black's development? Just a bishop out, and that's it. And look at how far advanced white's development would be. Okay, important middle game variations right there to be sure. Black's response to h3, chops away, first c3, then g3, knight c6 only now, and white can reply in this case e2 to e4. This makes a world of difference. Black takes on e4, queen recapturing, now assuming a very strong post. Queen d6, king f2, and from here bishop d7 is played. Pretty much the losing move at this stage. Black already has to be super precise. It says best is h4, g4, and only then bishop here. Queen g3 moves can be in the air at some stage, king hiding. Black goes forward with bishop d7 in this game. White has no interest in swiping this pawn and giving black some file to work with, start converging on the g3 square. Plays it with c5 here, kicks the queen back. She goes to e7. If you move forward, queen d5, okay, at that point you exchange queens and then collect that pawn. There won't be pressure on g3 with the queens exchanged. So it's queen e7 here. Rook hops to a half open file. Black castles queenside. Knight hops in the center. This is a poison knight. Knight takes knight. There's queen takes pawn. Game over. What do you do here? Well, it's f5. Queen stays trained on b7. Knight still poison. Follow up now, g4. Pop quiz. How do you respond here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, bolt from the blue. We have bishop a6, the only way to win from this position. The queen does not have to budge. The queen is captured at this point here. If a different move was played, let's say the queen stepping up to secure the knight, black could exchange knights. It likes h4 from here. It starts to even like black slightly. Okay. We don't see the queen move. Bishop a6. Now, pawn captures queen is played in the game. Any other move to quickly touch on? If the bishop is captured, here's how you can continue. One is to take the knight. There would be no time to take the queen. There's two mate one threats with this completely open b file now. So you could go ahead and chop away like that. That's winning the major piece specific position. Or you can target this a6 pawn. Here, doesn't matter. And what are you doing about queen a6 mate? There's also a fork idea to win back the material on c6. I'll touch on this line here, one where black tries to hold up. Queen takes a6, knight b8. Yep, you would be asking for an exchange sacrifice here. Rook captures knight. Queen captures a6, removing that intersection square on b5, and next up, the rook is going to pounce. This is the line I had to look at. The king tries to hide. You will not hide for long. This here would be leading to mate. Bishop here, check, checkmate. And if rook here, there's knight c6, there's a problem on a7. And once more, chop. We're recapturing mate on b7. Okay, so trying to, at this stage here, is black swipe the bishop. Not going to end well. Black's try here is to take the queen, and now this bishop has a ton of fun. Swipes a pawn with check, a knight, discovered check, another check, swipes a pawn with discovered check, king c8, one more check. In the end, the bishop now deciding after cleaning house there, ends up deciding on c6 with discovered check, keeping pressure on this bishop. And after just one more move, rook b2, black resigns. How are you supposed to cope with the battery followed up with rook b8 mate? There isn't a good response to this plan. If black tried bishop captures bishop here, you don't recapture. You keep the knight right where it's at, controlling d7, preventing the king's escape route. You would double up, and there's no stopping the mate. Rook b8. You could put the bishop on one of these two, but eventually we will still have mate. You could provide one square for the king. This is how the game could end, in mate. Anything else? Black could, at this point here, after rook to b2, prevent the mate. At this point right here, after rook to b2, you could prevent the mate by trying to run in this direction, but we would end up in a one rook and pawn ending. So after the rook moves, you could follow up here with bishop captures bishop check. If the king moves, we're going to have mate with rook b8. You would have to give up the queen here, and then you could be a little flashy here. There's more than one winning approach, but this is a cool one. Rook b8, gotta take. Knight takes queen with a fork. Track down the rook, and you play this rook and pawn ending where you're up two healthy pawns, and you're going to have the more active rook. This rook passive, king f3 to f4 is cool, and you're just a blink away from controlling that only open file. All right, black only goes as far as this moment here, saw the writing on the wall after rook to b2, and simply threw in the towel. How many of you spotted that bolt out of the blue there? Bishop a6, what a move. Anyhow, what are your thoughts on this one? Feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.